Welcome back, focused learners, to The Explainer. We're officially diving into part 8 of our 12-part masterclass. And today, well, we're basically unpacking a digital crime scene. We're going to trace a forensic timeline that shows exactly how deterministic hardware, literally the microscopic silicon sitting inside your computer right now, builds the ultimate architecture of trust. I know, it sounds a bit wild, but this fundamentally reshapes how creators are actually credited and paid.
Okay, let's just quickly breeze through our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1, the metadata miasma, 2, failing Web 2 automation, 3, the architecture of trust, 4, manual sweat of the brow, 5, x42 callback architecture, and finally 6, achieving bit-perfect provenance.
All right, to really wrap your head around the sheer scale of the 2020 DDX credit crisis, just think about this number, 2.7 million. During that chaotic jump from physical media over to digital streaming, analysts figured out that roughly 2.7 million albums were just left floating out there in this uncredited abyss. We're talking about billions of microtransactions completely disconnected from the actual human beings who made the music. You know, the session bassists, the sound engineers, the indie songwriters. Their livelihoods were essentially swallowed up by a digital void. So this is our crime scene. When industry leaders got together for the DDX 2020 Virtual Creator Credit Summit, they diagnosed this exact problem, calling it the Metadata Miasma. Think about it. When we lost the dedicated physical real estate of CD booklets, automated interfaces just sort of stripped away all that rich, verified history of who contributed to a song. It left behind this barren ecosystem, literally a thick fog of missing or just totally incorrect data that made it mathematically impossible to accurately route global payments.
Section 2. Failing Web 2 automation.
What's honestly fascinating here is just how spectacularly the automated approach crashed and burned. The industry officially classified this model as the upside-down tree metaphor, and eventually they just labeled it straight-up apostasy. The whole hope was that centralized platforms could just scrape the internet, let an AI guess who played a specific guitar riff by reading random blog posts. But the architecture documents explicitly tell us it just doesn't work. It created an even foggier, highly unreliable ecosystem. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you simply cannot reverse engineer the truth from a miasma.
Section 3. The architecture of trust.
So right at the core of our computers sits this stark hardware dichotomy. On one side, we've got the FPU gambler, the floating point unit. Sure, it's incredibly fast, but it uses these secret proprietary seed tables to approximate math. It's basically throwing darts at a board, totally unaccountable. But then, on the flip side, we have the ALU surveyor, the arithmetic logic unit. This guy deals strictly in deterministic, universal truths. 1 + 1 is exactly 2, every single time, on every single machine. To build a high-trust ecosystem, we absolutely have to ditch the gambler and fully embrace the undeniable forensic truth of the surveyor.
Now, why is avoiding the FPUs so absolutely crucial? Because relying on the gambler's approximations causes what researchers call the wood chipper effect. When an AI or an FPU approximates data, it completely wipes out the identity of the original contributors. It's kind of like a giant blender, right? You know what fruits went in, but you can never, ever perfectly reverse engineer that smoothie back into its exact original components. Without an exact, mathematically precise path, you simply cannot establish a true chain of title.
Section 4. Manual sweat of the brow.
As the technical evidence in the Context 27 Metagate shards proves, the only real path to bit-perfect data is good old-fashioned human effort. Manual authorship overrides automated miasma. You literally cannot automate human intent. To anchor data in reality, creators have to manually secure that metadata super early in the process, right inside the studio, at the exact moment of creation. That physical, mental steering, the sweat of the brow, is the absolute definitive requirement for establishing truth. This dynamic is known as the semiotic bridge, and it's basically an airtight partnership. You've got the human pilot applying their actual creative intent, and then a deterministic agent, which is code known as polycritus, steps in to execute the computational sweat. By manually applying strict visual boundaries or SVG masks to the data, architects lock in this incredibly strict deterministic hold. No probabilistic guessing here. This is the actual real-world mechanism ensuring a session bassist gets their name permanently attached to a digital file. Section 5. X42 Callback Architecture.
To really appreciate how this data travels, we need to look back at the HTTP 402 fracture. Way back in 1996, internet pioneers reserved the 402 payment-required status code.
But it just sat dormant for decades. Why? Because early developers kept trying to attach these bloated, text-heavy Ricardian legal contracts to simple digital transfers. It was an impenetrable wall. But then, in the 2010s, developers elegantly bypassed all that bloat using localized webhooks. This finally woke up that payment layer, leading directly to the mature x42 architecture we see today. This mature x42 protocol operates on a brilliantly simple event-driven mechanism called the chopsticks design. It's basically 3 quick steps. Step 1, the server triggers a 402 to demand proof. Step 2, an autonomous agent sitting right at the edge of the network natively processes the webhook. And step 3, the server receives a client callback receipt. That receipt, it's an immutable lock-in. It enforces absolute exactness without any of that heavy theoretical overhead from the 90s.
Section 6, Achieving Bit-Perfect Provenance. So when we put these paradigms side by side, the upgrade is just undeniable. We are moving entirely away from the lazy automated scraping that caused the whole credit crisis in the first place and going straight into manual sweat-of-the-brow authorship. We trade heavy complexity for streamlined webhooks. The end result? We banish the foggy, unreliable guessing of the miasma and replace it with deterministic, bit-perfect truth. It is literally night and day.
And the economic result of all this is absolutely staggering. By anchoring everything to the deterministic ALU and using perfect callbacks, we completely eliminate what the industry calls the mask rendering cost of narrative trust. Think of that as the hidden tax companies pay. You know, the endless legal fees, the third-party audits, the months wasted just trying to prove who owns what. When trust is mathematically baked into the hardware, that metabolic cost drops to near zero. Companies can suddenly redirect all that saved capital directly into exponential, superlinear growth.
We've seen exactly how deterministic agents and x42 webhooks rescued the music industry's supply chain from absolute chaos. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. If manual SVG masks and simple callback receipts can achieve true bit-perfect creator credits, what other broken, foggy corners of our digital economy are trapped in the miasma right now, just waiting to be anchored? Think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.